Going back to After Effects, you can also play a lot with something like the speed of how your transition plays out. So if we were to do that same transition, but this time in After Effects, and I'll show you since we'll edit it in After Effects, what you can do is something like this. So if we go to our text over here, you press this down to view things such as if you're familiar, like your anchor point, your position, your scale. So these are like some basic qualities that you can play around with. So something like position, if you can see, it moves your text around. Let's say here, if you can see my cursor on the x-axis and the y-axis, that's position. Scale, as you can probably guess, makes it bigger, smaller. Control Z to undo. Rotation, if you want to rotate it around this axis. And opacity, which you can do for, this is what we're going to be manipulating for fade-ins and fade-outs. So if you can set it to 0, it disappears. So here's what we're going to do. This is some basic keyframing, and basically what a keyframe is let's say you want this to fade in. So we're gonna start at 0%, and we're gonna click the stopwatch here. What this does is it adds this little dot, which is basically like at the point at which your animation will start. So what you can do is, again, turn that off, turn that on, click the stopwatch. As you can see, time varies stopwatch. It toggles the ability of something over time. And like more advanced stuff is if you press Alt and the stopwatch, if you know like the coding in After Effects, you can create code to modify the speed of the effect to how you like it. But that's for another day. Going back, you have this dot. Let's say I want my effect to appear on screen after 1 second. Here I have currently at the beginning at 0 seconds. I can click and drag the time indicator to 1 second and click this little dot over here to add a new frame and change my opacity to 100. So what that does basically, if we play it back, spacebar to render, just shows up like that. So to kind of expand this a little bit more, another neat trick that you can learn, is you can click and hold this and press F9. There you go. And what that does is it turns the dots into these kinds of hourglass-looking icons. And what this does is it makes the transition of fading in a lot smoother. So let's make a comparison here. So you'll probably be able to see the difference after it renders here. So this one kind of like is linear in time, comparing this, although it's very subtle, help make the presentation a lot better. Let's try to see how this works in Premiere Pro, importing the same After Effects composition. Let me just try renaming something. So easy. Let's duplicate this. We'll be showing an example of like what the same motion graphic will look like in regular time and with easy ease. So if I were to delete this and to import the After Effects composition, we'll see here that we have both easy ease and regular time. So we'll import both of that, and we'll show the regular time first. So as you can see, basically the easy ease has a slower like fade time, comparing this to regular time, where it's more linear and it doesn't fade in as cleanly. So it's a very subtle effect that you can see, and I'll show you like through After Effects. What you can do to like map, like there's a map to it or something, is you can click and hold this and click on this graph editor. You can see that it's kind of like the way it fades in. Whereas if you do it in regular time, you'll see that the graph is like kind of flat. If you can like imagine like when you have something that moves fast or moves slow, those kinds of very technical things will make a big difference when you have these kinds of animations. So Premiere Pro and like After Effects, they're kind of like, they're two different tools, but they all kind of contribute to the same purpose, which is to make nice videos. So the way I like to think about them, and like the analogy that I was taught, was Premiere Pro is kind of a lawnmower where you can see and tackle lots of like your project at a glance, because if you zoom out, all of those clips will like show up. You can kind of pick and choose where you want to move clips around from a glance. Whereas After Effects, you'll be able to micromanage these small like graph editor kinds of things. So it's like bonsai scissors, where you have very fine details that you can choose to edit and to be nitpicky about. I'll try opening an old project. I'll open what the Cosmos lineup video animation looks like. It looks very complicated, but is made up of the same like those similar small properties that I showed, just repeated many times. If you've ever watched the Cosmos animation video, they have like lots of band names that are like animated. But what we do there is we kind of chop up and delegate each animation to one person. And like one animation is around 6 seconds long, but can take like a week to finish. So like this is one of the, I think the ones that I did, which was Itchy Worms. This is what it would look like. Let this green bar fill, and then you can see what it looks like. We'll break it down. So as you can see on my composition timeline, I have like some like layers. So to break this down, you'll see I have stars, mouth and eyes of the villain, which is like the black hole, and then the castle background. So you can like just toggle on and off, and as you can probably see, when you play this back, basically this was like introducing the villain. So try to kind of match, like follow this timeline and follow it in real time. Let's say the mouth and eyes of the villain was probably a good one. So as you can see, like we talked about opacity in the earlier example of the motion graphic to introduce Jun. So a lot of this, like if you were to scroll through it, is just like the eyes and the mouth opening, and then like he was moving up and down in the other composition, and then it would eventually like transform into Itchy Worms. Before we like for the eyes and the mouth, like as you can see, it's just opacity, 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 opacity. So if we go through it slowly, you can see first the eyes and the mouth opening. So I kind of hide that first and then show that. Going a bit forward in time. This one was like his eyes kind of disappear and it gets ready to kind of transform. And as you can see, there's just a lot of opacity keyframe markers here because I wanted to have like a flashing effect, as you can see with the Itchy Worms. So it just flashes on and off by manipulating that opacity from, as you can see on this side, just like it goes from 100 to 0, 100 to 0 really fast. So this is like the kind of, it's just the basic like opacity characteristic just made really fast. So it's a very simple, like one of those simple things that even if it looks complicated, repeated many times, people won't even notice. It's just the simple things that make up these kinds of animations. So this was like a little project that I did for Red Bull, I think back in February. So this is what like a full-blown kind of timeline looks like, and it can be very messy. But as you can see, like I mentioned, it's like a non-linear editor, so you can click this and move it around. Basically, you have a timeline and you can zoom in and out of minus and plus, and you can scroll on the timeline, and then so as you can probably see, like there are a lot of like small elements, like maybe here, like this text is appearing because of this, and then underneath it there's a lot of like video clips. So you kind of just stack them all together to get your intended effect. So this is something like this. This is a short film, and then on the bottom you have like different kinds of audio. Like I have, I think, if I'm not mistaken, maybe this one is the audio track, and then all these little blips are like sound effects. And then, as I mentioned, like here you can fix audio. So in the real video, like these 2 dots, like that's the audio volume. So you can also kind of change like how strong a certain sound effect is, or how soft and how subtle you want it to be in the film. Yeah, I think that's it. If there are any questions from you guys, just leave them in the comments or send me a message. I'm always happy to help like people who want to get into creatives, because it seems intimidating, but it's a very like rewarding process to see like JMA's projects like Cosmos come to life, and you can get the clout for that.